So, you want to get better at Smash Ultimate, huh? Well, I'm happy to say that you came to the right place. My hope is that I'll be able to provide you with information that's either different or clearer than what you've seen from every other Smash YouTuber, and by watching this video, you'll be able to figure out what you personally need to do to improve at the game. As always, the first thing you need to think about before we get into any of this is what your goal is as a Smash player. Why do you want to get good in the first place? Are you looking to be able to be as good as your friends? Do you want to be able to compete in local tournaments? Or is your goal to become one of the best Smash players in your country or even the world? Let's not get too ahead of ourselves right off the bat. You aren't watching this video because you're already beating top Smash players. The first thing we need to do is the one thing everyone hates hearing about: the fundamentals. Come on, Red, I already know the fundamentals. I want to get to the harder stuff. Cool, we'll get to the harder stuff in a little bit. But first, I want you to watch the entire Art of Smash playlist by IzAw Smash. Already watched it? Watch it one more time. Even if some of the things he says sound repetitive, especially if you're well aware of the differences between a back air and a forward air, you'll probably find at least one thing that will help you improve a little bit faster. Links to that will be in the description below. This is where the philosophy starts to kick in. Do you work harder or smarter? Well, I hate to tell you this, but there is no 100% way to know if you're practicing smarter in the first place. Practicing smart is kinda like a tier list. Even though there are some things that most of the community generally agrees is fundamentally better, such as playing against humans and not CPUs, there are also some things that just come down to opinion, such as how long you should spend practicing in training mode, playing against other people, and watching videos like this. Now, why would I bring that up? Just because I want you to know that so long as you are working hard, you are moving in a positive direction. The more time you spend playing, the more fluency you develop, and that is the number one single most important thing you can develop. So, what exactly is fluency? Fluency is when you can do something without thinking about it. People who become fluent in a foreign language can speak to people naturally without thinking, okay, how do I translate this word or conjugate this verb? It's like driving a car, where in the beginning you're thinking about turn signals, how fast you're going, checking your mirrors before merging, and who can forget parallel parking? The same logic applies to Smash Ultimate. First you learn your kit, then you learn how to apply them in different situations. Then you learn how to adapt to your opponent's habits and tendencies, and as you continue to climb that ladder, you don't even think about the things you learned to get to where you are now. Instead, you're thinking at a much deeper level, trying to figure out how the tools you have can work against your opponent. Okay, now that the philosophical part is out of the way, let's move on to some more practical stuff. So for those who haven't watched my video on picking out a secondary, the idea is that there are 5 phases of improving in Smash Ultimate. The testing phase, the main phase, the plateau phase, the competitive phase, and the elite phase. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're in one of the first 3, but we'll go over all of them just so you have a better idea of where you are and how you can improve. To start us off, we have the testing phase. This is where you'll pick up the game and start experimenting with as many different characters as you can. While you play around with each character, try to find ones that you connect with naturally. You may be tempted to look at tier lists and see which characters have the most potential, but until you become one of the best players either in your state or area, you will win more games by picking out whichever character clicks with you the most, regardless as to whatever tier list someone says they're in. Personally, I main Byleth, who's considered to be a bottom 20 character in ESAM's playlist, but he's wrong! Byleth is the best character in the game, better than Pikachu, don't at me! Basically, use whoever makes you happy, and don't worry about what anyone else says about them. Also, don't be afraid to battle against CPUs when you're in this phase, seeing as how your main goal right now is to have fun while learning your own personal playstyle. When you're in this phase, I wouldn't recommend playing against people who are super good quite yet. If you try to take on people who have been playing the game for hundreds, if not thousands of hours while you're still learning your first combos, the only thing you're going to learn is how to hate everything and wish you were doing something else. If you're going to be playing against real people, I would recommend playing with friends rather than people online, where you'd be far less likely to play against someone your own skill level. The main thing to do in this phase is to figure out your playstyle, start to think consciously about all the different tools your character has, and start to learn all of the tilts, smash attacks, aerials, and special moves. Then, once you do all this, you can start to narrow down the characters until you find your main. Now we get into, you guessed it, the main phase. I've made 2 videos about choosing your main already, but the most important thing to remember is this. You don't choose your main chooses you. Your main should intrinsically come to you after you play around enough with each of the characters. With 80 characters on the roster, your main should be the only one that you want to use, at least at first. Feel free to also pick up a secondary or tertiary if you'd like, but there should always be one specific character that you use to improve and get good at the game. It's important to have a main and stick with them so you can improve at a faster pace. If you're using multiple characters, you're not taking the time to master things like what you should do during a disadvantage or advantage state, how to edge guard off stage, how to avoid specific attacks from other characters, as well as basically everything else at the fundamental level. You see players like Tweak who can pick up basically any character he wants and automatically be good with them, but that's because he's already learned through playing specifically with Bowser Jr., learning all the little details that he was then able to transition into other characters. Although it may seem counterintuitive to play with one character so that you can get good with multiple, it really does help you learn faster by just using your main than by trying to get good with a handful of characters. At this point, you should be playing against real people, both online and offline if possible. You're still allowed to play against CPUs if you want, but just realize that now you've decided to take your Smash game to the next level. If you want to learn how to beat CPUs, play against CPUs. If you want to learn how to beat people, play against people. While it's true that you should at least be able to beat level 9 computers if you want to start beating real people, playing against a computer isn't going to help you learn to adapt, which is what separates the good players from the elite players. Now here comes the worst part of the whole journey, the plateau phase. It's going to happen to you at some point. You've messed around with all the characters, picked out one that you enjoyed using more than anyone else, and have had plenty of battles against real people. Now all of a sudden, you're not doing so well anymore. You're either losing close games or completely getting destroyed. It feels like no matter what you do, you can't seem to win against your opponents. It feels like you're either stagnating or getting worse. In fact, it sucks so bad that maybe you're even thinking about changing your main altogether. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. Everyone goes through this. First of all, if it's starting to have an impact on your confidence, take a break for a little while. Maybe a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. I promise you can still get there if you take some time to get your head back on your shoulders again. If you're still using a secondary, it might be a good idea to put that on hold at least until you make it out of this phase. When you get to this point, you need to make sure you're watching replays of your games and getting feedback whenever you can. If you're playing against someone offline, ask them if there's anything they think you can do better next time. If you're playing against someone online and don't have any way of talking to that person, save a replay at the end of your game and try posting it online somewhere that'll give you feedback. If you do this though, be sure to take the advice they give you with a grain of salt. They may be right, but they might not know any better than you do. I've personally found that Facebook groups for your area are some of the best places to get some great sound advice, but again, that's just my experience. The hope is that eventually, after you stop rolling after every freaking attack, you'll begin to win more games and move on to the next phase. The competitive phase. This is where your fluency is going to be good enough to where adaptation becomes the main thing separating you and your opponent. There's no secret at this point. The only way to get good at this is to play as many games against real people as possible. If you're electing not to rematch opponents after you play them, you're missing out on the most important skill you can gain in this phase. If there are local tournaments in your area, it's time to start going to those if you haven't already. It's time to move on to more than just online play. If you're looking to be one of the best players in the world, it's time to start taking on the best players in your area. Study their tendencies, and if there's any footage of their previous matches, study those too. You're not just doing online anymore, which means that you're going to start playing the same people multiple times over the course of your Smash career. Now's the time not just to solidify yourself as a Marth main, but to let the world know you're looking to be the best Marth player in the world. After you've done this, you've probably spent more than just a couple hundred hours playing the game, playing predominantly against real people, both online and offline, and finally, you've made it onto your state's power rankings. Now you're not just in Elite Smash, you've made it into the final phase, the Elite phase. At this point, you probably don't need any advice from me. You're going to major tournaments and hopefully making it out of pools and into the winner's bracket for as long as possible. You're finding new ways to use your character that nobody has even seen yet. You spend time in the training lab to learn new combos, you know the kill percentage for every move against every character, and you know the frame data for every option both you and your opponent can use. You're only using a secondary because your main has already reached its top potential. Your understanding of the game is beyond what you can get just by playing against other people over and over, and when you make it, be sure to let me know. I hope to be there cheering for you when you've made your mark in the world of Smash Ultimate. Of course, there are other things that you can be doing at any phase. Try looking up how to handle different matchups. Learn frame data for your moves as well as those of other characters. Watch combo videos and videos of how the best players use your main. Spend time in the training lab to practice your skills and weaknesses. Probably the best way to improve at Smash is to subscribe to my channel, but I can understand if you've got other priorities. You can hit the like button instead, that works too. I'm sorry, that was terrible. Anyway, the main thing you need to realize is that this is a long, difficult process. There are going to be people out there who do exactly what you do and learn at a quicker pace. There are people who have already spent thousands of hours playing Smash Ultimate alone, and that's on top of all the experience they've had since the 64 days. It's going to be hard. You've got to think about why this is a goal for you in the first place. If you do decide that you want to be elite though, I'm rooting for you. Even though it's difficult and tedious, it's rewarding in more ways than just one. Being elite isn't a goal, it's a journey, and I'm glad that we get to be on that path together. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Leave a comment if you have any advice of your own. I hope you enjoyed the video, and with that said, I'll see you guys next time.